Hi guys, today I want to talk about the books I read in March. So in March I ended up reading two books, both fantasy, both adult high fantasy. I wanted to read more actually this month, but some stuff came in between. Obviously with the current situation it was a bit weird, but also the one book I was reading was quite big. I'll let you know in a bit. And yeah, so I ended up reading two books. I started another book, but yeah, I didn't quite finish it. Yeah, but I'll talk about the two books I finished this month. Let's get right into it. The first book I finished is A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. This is the third book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, and this is the big book I was talking about. So yeah, this book is almost 1,000 pages. Like I think it's 973 pages in total, and this is quite a heavy book. If you've read A Song of Ice and Fire or if you've watched Game of Thrones, you know that this is quite a dark series, and this book in particular is very, very dense, and it took me about 4 weeks to read. Not because it was hard to read, but just the content. Like I thought every single chapter in this book had some big implications, and yeah, it was. Especially after a certain point, it got hard to read more than 2 or 3 chapters a day, just because there was so much content that was thrown at you. And that is not to the detriment of this book. This book is amazing, and there are things that are happening constantly. And I feel like this was kind of a bit different than the first two books in this series, especially because of the fact that it felt a lot more fast-paced. The first and second book had some chapters that felt like not a lot is happening, and there were 1, 2 storylines that felt like, okay, we're just moving these along a bit, but they're not the main focus of the story. I didn't feel like that was the case with any of the point of view chapters in this book. It felt like all the POV characters, apart from maybe one, but even that is arguable, had a lot of things to do in this book, so it never felt like you had a chapter where you could just relax a bit, spend some time with the character and nothing would happen. It felt like every single chapter something amazing happened. If you don't know, actually, the third book, so A Storm of Swords, is the source material for the third and fourth season of Game of Thrones, which are mostly regarded as the two best seasons. So yeah, you can imagine there's a lot of stuff happening in this book, especially the last half or last third of this book is incredible. There is so much stuff happening. There are so many characters doing so much cool stuff, and there is so much plot progression as well, that the point where we started this book and the point where we end this book are so completely different things that it was an amazing read. Again, this is a 5 out of 5 book for me, as have been the first two books in the series. And I would say this is my favorite book of the three, just because of how fast-paced it is. So right now I would say The Storm of Swords is my favorite, then I would put A Game of Thrones, then A Clash of Kings. Yeah, so I would recommend this series wholeheartedly. Yeah, now I'm done basically with the books that the TV show adapted very faithfully, and I'm looking forward to continuing with this series, because now I will actually see stuff that I haven't seen before. Like, I know some of the stuff that was different in the books. Now I can actually see the story where it changes quite a lot from the story I've seen in the show, so I'm looking forward to that. And actually, before I will go into the next book, A Feast for Crows, I'm actually reading A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. This is a bind-up of 3 prequel novellas called The Tales of Dunk and Egg, which is set 100 years before A Game of Thrones. So yeah, I'm reading this because I talked to some people online who've read the series, and they said that reading it after book 3 would be a good place. So I'm reading this one. I have read the first novella, which I also quite liked. But yeah, I'll talk about this in a dedicated review, I think. And I will also talk about A Storm of Swords in a dedicated review. I actually have to do reviews for all the Song of Ice and Fire books I've read, but I will be doing that soon, so stick around for that. But yeah, I would recommend reading this too. And yeah, I plan to read A Feast for Crows next month, but yeah, I'll talk about that more in my TBR video. The second book I read in March is Lot of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the first novel slash the third entry into the Witcher saga. So yeah, this book is set after the first two short story collections, The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. This continued the story quite well. I have to say this is structured a bit differently than the other fantasy books I've read. So you don't actually get these like changing point of views very like at least, or let's say you don't get different storylines going on simultaneously, but this book is actually just 6 chapters, and every chapter focuses on one particular story. So the structure was a bit weird, but I still liked it. I do think it was a bit, I wouldn't say slow. It feels like stuff happened, but this didn't quite feel like a 3-act story. Don't get me wrong, a lot did happen in the book, but it doesn't feel like this was a whole story in itself, but it felt like this was a big setup for a bigger story coming in the next few books. Yeah, I still enjoyed it. I gave this book 4 out of 5, mainly because I enjoy these characters so much, especially the main 3 characters. Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri are amazing. Their relationships with each other are really cool. So yeah, that's the main reason I like these books so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing more from these 3 characters and also more from the world. And I also want to see where the story that's been set up is leading. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what to expect from these books. Like, it doesn't seem like every book may have its own storyline, but more that there is one overarching storyline that we'll get. Maybe there won't be a conclusion until the last book. That's just a feeling I got from this book. Like, it felt like a lot of stuff was set up, but it didn't feel like a lot of stuff was resolved by the end. I don't think anything was actually resolved. It all seems like a big setup. I mean, this is also quite a short book, and for that it is quite good. But I also feel like maybe because I was reading it at the same time as A Storm of Swords, maybe this just felt a bit, slower than it actually is to me. But yeah, you can see from my rating, I still really enjoyed it. But yeah, I do feel like the structure of this hurt it a bit. Like, there were 1-2 chapters in the middle where I thought, okay, maybe this isn't as good as it should be. But then the last chapter actually pulled it back up. And yeah, I wanted to continue with the series immediately. I didn't do that because I felt in the middle of this book that I was a bit not burnt out, but I felt like I could be burnt out if I read too much at once. So I'm going to take my time with the series. I will pick up the next book for sure, but I'm just not sure if I will pick it up in April or maybe wait a month and then pick it up in May. But yeah, still, it's a 4 out of 5 book for me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing these characters again in the next book. I also highly recommend this one. And yeah, for this one, there will also be a dedicated review quite soon. I have to put up my Sword of Destiny review, which will probably come out early next week. And then Blood of Elves will either come out end of the next week or the week after. Look forward to that if you're interested in more spoilery thoughts on the story. And yeah, those are the only 2 books that I'm going to talk about today. As I said, March was a bit weird. I hope April I can read a few more books than just 2. But still, I really enjoyed the reading I did this month. And yeah, I'd recommend both books that I've read. If you have any comments regarding any of these books, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching the video. Check out my other videos. Some will have popped up on the screen right now. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.